What's the dumbest thing you've ever done because your brain was on autopilot? Started a new job, got to my old workplace before I realized what I'd done. Not exactly the same, but sometimes if I'm off on a day I usually work and I go to hang with friend or do errands, I find myself taking the same route to get to work. I drove to work one morning, promptly forgot, and then took the bus home, leaving my car in the parking lot. I did this with my bike and didn't realize for over a week. Did this with my bike too and it got stolen. Once I was sick, and not thinking too well. A package delivery person rang the doorbell. Me, not thinking, got up from the couch, walked up to the door, and knocked on it. Then I opened the door to a mildly confused delivery man and took the package. It wasn't until I had closed the door, box in hand, that I realized my error. I work in healthcare, so I knock before entering a patient room. I can't even count the number of times I've opened the door to a confused waiting room of people after knocking on the waiting room door. I had to read this 4 times to realize the problem. I normally only see my neighbor when I arrive home from walking my dogs, so I'm holding the dogs on leashes as I greet the old guy next door most times and have to tell the dogs to come along. One day I dropped the dogs off inside my place and headed out to bring the bins in after collection. See the neighbor and exchange greetings as per usual. As we finish I turn to the bin and say, "Come on, let's go." Did the bin go in? In much the same way as the dogs, with a lot of tugging by me. Not me, but my husband called me from work. He forgot to put a shirt on before leaving, and could I bring him one, please? There he was, just wearing a jacket. Evidently he tossed it on to go start the car in the cold and never took it off. Ada, runner-up, goes to the time my daughter went to school and forgot to put on underwear in 2nd grade. Yeah, of course she was wearing a skirt. We lived 30 minutes from school and she realized it just as we pulled into the parking lot, and I marched her into the nurse, who grabbed out an emergency stash of granny briefs labeled with the school's name on them in big black Sharpie. She's 18 now and still mortified when we bring it up. Had to stop a boyfriend once from leaving without pants on. He had put boots, jacket, hat and gloves on. I got a few meters down the garden path, then realized I was sans pants. Thankfully we have a high fence. He is definitely not alone. When I was working a summer office job during university, I would rollerblade to work. One particularly hot day, I packed a white blouse but no bra. I sat in my office dying in the heat wearing a sweater all day. Not the last time I've done that, had to go buy a cheap one at the drugstore another time. Drove towards my job when my friend asked me to hang out. I've done similar. Had a week or 2 straight where it was pretty much, wake up, go to work, go to bed. Repeat. Finally finish the project and have some time off. Wife wants to try a new restaurant for lunch and finally spend time with me, so we pile the kids in the car and go. It just so happens that the first leg of the trip to the restaurant was exactly the same as my commute, so I just went into autopilot. I didn't realize until I was halfway to work, and my wife asked where exactly the hell were we going. I've done the reverse of this, started driving home at lunch. The restaurant I usually go to for lunch is on my route home. More than once I've just turned off and started driving home at noon 100% on autopilot. Normally I'll realize almost immediately, but, on one occasion, I was particularly tired and actually made it all the way home before I realized I'd fucked up. That's when you give up and realize that it's probably better to spend the rest of the day at home. Recently I was trying to microwave some popcorn, and instead of putting the popcorn packet in the microwave I put in the plastic wrap and proceeded to press start. I did not realize what I had done wrong until I looked down at the popcorn packet and thought something's not right here. 2 and 2 got put together before anything nasty or disastrous happened, thankfully. I can't tell you how many times I've tried to put the milk away in the oven and only stopped when I couldn't find the milk shelf. I wanted to refill my cup with more water, so I just poured my already half-filled cup out on the table to make room for more water. I had a similar experience, but it was more like I reached out to grab my cup but my hand had ulterior motives and just slapped the cup over. Hard like water went everywhere. I had no intention to do this, but I did. This bitch ain't empty. Yeet. Shaved off an eyebrow. Was shaving my chin etc. and my eyebrow got itchy, so I scratched it with the razor. I did the same dumbass mistake, except on my nose frown I cut myself, but luckily it wasn't deep. Just made me feel stupid. I wiped a razor off with my finger once. 4 parallel cuts that bled for fucking ver. Ouch. I regret reading this. When I was a truck driver, I drove 200 miles down the wrong freeway and had to turn around and drive 200 miles back. I never told my dispatcher and he never caught it. I did that once. Unfortunately, I had to tell my dispatcher of my mistake as it threw off the rest of my loads for the day and made it impossible to do them, and the one I had was going to be late. Then a couple weeks later I missed the backhaul message and deadheaded back empty. I felt like an idiot and he treated me like on for a bit too.